In today's video, we're going to be ranking the best winger options for the Springboks in 2024. I'm either going to rank them at the club level, on the cusp, or as a Springbok. Just before we get into the video, please make sure you hit that subscribe button because the goal of this channel is to bring a fan's perspective to other fans, and we're trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. With that said, let's get into the winger options. Now, I do have 15 options here, so we're just going to touch on each of them really quickly. As you can see, there's plenty of depth within South Africa, and I had to leave a couple of wingers out, even otherwise this video would have got a little bit long. The first option is Dylan Lades. Now, Dylan Lades played for the Stormers. He's now playing for La Rochelle. We're going to see him in action tomorrow against the Stormers, playing for La Rochelle, but he also managed to get himself 10 Springbok caps. I just think his time has passed. There's a lot better options at the moment for who can play wing for the Springboks. So for me, I'm going to put Dylan Lades in that club position. It's a bit unfortunate because he was so good in his day and he still is playing some really good rugby. I just think there's better options ahead of him. Moving on. Next up, we've got Richard Kriel, who's currently playing for the Lions. He's played for the Bulls. He had a stint at Zebra over in Italy for a bit. You'll know his brother David Kriel, who plays for the Bulls, who's currently playing fullback as well as center and wing for the Bulls. I decided not to add David Kriel in here because I think his best position is that inside center role or at fullback. But Richard Kriel has been playing some decent rugby for the Lions. He's only 23 years old. I just think he needs a couple more years of development. He needs to really have that breakout season. So for me, we're going to put Kriel in the club level. Next up, we got Edouard Keita, who now is currently playing for the Sharks. He's 27 years old, but he actually came up through the Griquas, played some very pivotal roles in that Griquas side. He was the star player in many of their matches, sort of in the Currie Cup and those smaller competitions, and I'm glad to see that he's got a break at the Sharks. He's still very new at the Sharks, so we have to see how he goes for the next couple of seasons. But for me, I just don't think he's even on the radar for the Springboks at the moment, even though he is a very good player. So for me, I'm going to put Keita in that club level as well. Next up, we got Sbu Nkosi, and in his day, he was probably one of the most dangerous wingers on the field. I say in his day, he's only 31 years old, but I do think he's a little bit old for a wing, especially with Rasmus building to the 2027 and 2031 World Cup. He has played 10 times for the Springboks. He was in the 2019 team. I do think he was extremely lethal. He's now made a move to the Cheetahs. So I'm glad to see he's still playing, but I just don't think he's on the radar at the moment. I don't even think he's on the cusp. So I'm going to put Sbu Nkosi in that club level as well. Next up, we got Aphiwe Dyantyi. Now, Dyantyi was a star player a couple of years ago, but then let's just say he took a 4-year break. He got banned for 4 years for doing illegal substances, but he was an extremely good player back in the day. He's now come back. He's playing for the Sharks. He hasn't got that much game time left, but we do forget he's only 29 years old and he's been out for 4 years. He's also played 13 times for the Springboks, but I think if he wants to play for the Springboks again, he's going to have to tie a lot of good performances together, and I just don't think he's getting the time at the Sharks at the moment. So for me, I'm going to put him in that club level. Next up, we move to the Bulls, and we've got Sebastian de Klerk. Now, he's quite new to the Bulls. He came up through the Pumas, played very well for the Pumas, but he looks to be a very dangerous winger. It's actually his birthday today. Fun fact, he's now 24 years of age, but I just don't think we've seen enough of him yet at the highest level in the URC. So again, he's one of those players that could be playing for the Springboks in a couple of years if he can put together some good seasons. But for me, I'm going to have to put him in that club level. So far, we have a lot of players in the club level, but I've got a couple up my sleeve here, a couple of surprise packages. So make sure you stick around to see who I put in on the cusp and at the Springboks. Next up, we've got someone who's been lighting up Ellis Park, Edwil van der Merwe. He's 27 years old. He has played for the South African under-20s, and the only thing better than his tries at the moment are his dance moves. I feel like he's had a little bit of a breakout season. I was a bit disappointed he wasn't added to the lineman camp squad, but he can still play for the Springboks. Yes, he is 27, so maybe he could be in the plans for 2027, but definitely not for 2031. I do think he's in some really good form, and I would be surprised if he doesn't get at least one run with South Africa this year. So for me, I'm going to put him on the cusp. I think he's just got a little bit more work to do for him to really claim that Springbok position, but he's having a very, very good season, and I would definitely watch out for Edwill van der Merwe. Next up, we've got Jesse Kriel. Now, Jesse Kriel was one of the form players at the 2023 World Cup where he played outside center. Now, I have added him into the wing options here just because there is so much depth within South African rugby at the moment. I do think will probably play 13. Jesse Kriel might be able to slot in on the wing, but Jesse Kriel does give the Springboks a little bit of that utility feel. He's also very, very experienced with 67 caps for the Springboks, and he's still only 30. So he definitely still could play in the 2027 World Cup, and I do think he's going to play a big role this year in the Springboks taking on Ireland, taking on New Zealand. So for me, I think Jesse Kriel has to be in that Springbok category, whether he plays wing, whether he plays outside center. He just gives Rassie Erasmus a little bit more options and versatility in the back line. Then going back to the Sharks, we've got Werner Koch. Now, I think Werner Koch, yes, he's 31 years old. He played for the Springbok Sevens for years and years. I think he has about 300 caps for the Springbok Seven side, but he just has never really kicked on in the 15s game. He is a very good wing. He's physical. His work rate is off the charts, but for some reason, I don't know, there's just something lacking from Werner Koch. I love his heart. I love the way he plays rugby, but I just don't think we're ever going to see him in a Springbok top. So for that reason, I'm going to have to put Werner Koch in that club category. Now, the next few players, as you can see, I messed up their picture just a little bit there, but I do know who they are. The first one, Makazole Mpimpi, who stole our hearts at the 2019 World Cup. I do think he's getting on a little bit. Yes, he has quite a bit of experience, and he probably will still play this year. So I'm going to put Mpimpi in that Springbok position. I just think he's been having a good season for the Sharks. He can still do it for the Springboks for the next 1 to 2 to 3 years. Next up, we've got Kurtley Arendse, who's been absolutely tearing it up at the Bulls. He's probably one of the best wings on the planet at the moment. He's physical. He's super elusive. He's good under the high ball. For me, Kurtley Arendse has to go into the Springbok category. Next up, Cheslin Kolbe, who was the star of the 2019 World Cup, star of the 2023 World Cup. He is probably the best wing on the planet at the moment. Super elusive, physical. You just can't catch the guy. He's very, very, very good. So for me, obviously, Cheslin Kolbe has to go into that Springbok category. Then moving on, we've got Canan Moodie, who's been a little bit of a prodigy over the last couple of years, played in the 2023 World Cup, maybe didn't get as much game time as he was hoping, but he also is one of those backs that can play any center role. He can play fullback, he can play wing, but I do think he is good on wing. I prefer him at 13, but he is a good wing, and the Springboks definitely like playing him at wing. So Canan Moodie is an obvious pick for that Springbok category. So now you can start to see, once we've built this out a bit, how much depth we actually have, how much quality we have in that Springbok category. Then the last two players coming out of the Stormers, we've got Leon Zas and Suleiman Hartzenberg. Now, Zas has sort of been on the map for the past couple of years. He did get a couple of caps for South Africa A in 2016. So he was definitely seen as someone back then who could potentially be a youngster that plays in a Springbok top for the next 10 years. It wasn't meant to be, but he has been putting in some very, very good performances for the Stormers. I just don't think he's quite there. He didn't make the alignment camp squad. That's, again, not saying that he isn't going to play, but I do think Zas is on the cusp. He just has to do a little bit more to sort of nail down that position, and you can see how much competition there is at the highest level for this position. So Zas is going to have to do something special. And then finally, our last player, Suleiman Hartzenberg, who's kind of exploded onto the scene this season. He's only 20 years old, been tearing it up for the Stormers. He scored a hat-trick the other week. He's been added to the alignment camp squad. So everything is looking like Hartzenberg will be sort of the wing for the next 10 years, that prodigy, along with Canan Moodie. I mean, the depth in South Africa, the youngsters that we are producing is just on an absolute another level. He's been added to the lineman camp squad. I wish there was a position between Springboks and on the cusp here, because I think he needs to do just a little bit more. We need to give him a chance in a Springbok top to see how he handles that pressure. So for me, it is a tough call, but I am going to put him on the cusp. I think he needs to put a couple more performances in that's really going to throw me over into that Springbok position. If you look at the Springbok wings, Jesse Kriel and Pimpy, Kurtley Arendse, Ches and Colby, and Kanan Moody, that's a very, very difficult group of players to break into. So you're going to have to just do a little bit more, but I think he's right there pushing for that position in a Springbok top. As always, let me know what you guys think about my rankings down in the comments. Make sure you leave this video a like, and if you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. Peace.